Hi guys, it's Dom live from the kitchen. Just had a really good chat with Alistair McGeorge, who's a Metro journalist. He's interviewed Triple H and he's interviewed Ric Flair and a bunch of other amazing sort of WBE guys. He's got a few years of wrestling journalism in his back pocket, so it was great to sort of pick his brains about that, but also talk about some dream feuds and what WBE sort of planning for Rockstar Spud or Drake Maverick as well. So some present day stuff discussed too. So I hope you guys enjoy this little debate and find it useful if you're interested in journalism or wrestling journalism and just debate. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you again really soon. It's good to have you on the Gimme A Hull Yeah Wrestling podcast, man. Obviously, my name is Dom from Soundsphere. We've known each other for a long time. Obviously, you know, I know you through music and obviously through academic stuff too. So tell me a bit about how you got into sort of starting journalism and wrestling.
Yeah, with the journalism, I obviously, went to UCLan over in Preston, studying journalism there. Got some amazing contacts while I was there. Did some work experience with the place Female First, sort of website based in Wigan. Did some work. Ended up working with them full time, straight out of uni. Which from there, I got introduced to Cy Rothstein, who works for Impact, doing their PR, and sort of did my first wrestling interviews through him. Sort of the time it was people like sort of Mickey James. And
I remember Cy. Yeah, I did some stuff. Yeah, good lad. Yeah.
And then sort of went from there. Did bits when I eventually moved on to the Mirror, so I did little bits for them there, lots of interviews and wrestling and stuff, and then finally with the Metro now contributing for them, doing
nice.
It's been an absolute blast. Sort of started that with them. I did a trip in October over to LA and to the Performance Center in Orlando, which was the greatest week. It was just incredible. Amazing. And thankfully from there, Metro have decided to really go with it. So
awesome. So is that, are you getting, because you're a bit of a self-star, and you know, as long as I've known you, you've worked really hard. So are you going out and sourcing those and making the connections, or a Metro doing that for you? Because obviously you're a contributor at Metro and you've been building your portfolio and stuff for years now. But was the wrestling thing, did you take the lead on that to create those opportunities?
Yeah, I've been trying to push for them to do it for a little while. Like I really thought there was space for them to push on with it, and I've got sort of old colleagues and things there, so I was trying to push for it, and they were just trying to figure out where it'd fit in and all that, and where I'd fit in with it. The opportunity came up for the press trip, which I was sort of approached for to do as a freelancer for them, just because of how much I've kind of been nagging about wanting to do it with them.
Yeah.
So I got sent out on that. They realised that the audience was there, so once all the pieces from that had got up, we started chatting again and figured out an arrangement, so that I can keep doing it as a freelancer for them. So I'm sort of given fairly free rein in terms of the stories I do. I'm sourcing all the interviews and that kind of thing myself.
Amazing.
But so it's been really great.
Yeah, congratulations on that, man. And just before we start talking about, because the idea of having you on is to get us debating some present topics in wrestling, but obviously, you know, seeing your success and seeing what you've been able to do, give me a couple of highlights of your career so far. It could be wrestling, could be otherwise.
In terms of wrestling, like I say, that trip back in October was really surreal, but it was just really nice. Like just going around the Performance Center was fantastic, and we did a lot of interviews that day with people like Triple H. It was the first time I'd interviewed him, which is someone I'd, grown up idolizing. So getting to chat to him was really special. And there's been a lot of moments like that. Even just on the phone, maybe a month ago, chatted to Ric Flair, which was insane. A couple of weeks later, had Shawn Michaels on the phone, and it's been things like that where it's almost surreal that it just feels relatively normal at this point, which is nice. But not in a way that sort of disillusioned with it. It's still, such a massive fan, so it's great getting those kind of
That's things. Incredible, man. I remember I spoke to Rick and he couldn't understand me because of my Yorkshire accent. Like it was like for about 5 minutes I was on the phone and I was like, "Hey, Rick," and he's like, "Yeah, this is Ric Flair," and I'm like, I know. Like, we had a big back and forth about him trying to understand where I was from in the UK. So yeah, man. But what a cool career, man. What a cool career. And so, like, I think that's really interesting. thing to sort of ask quickly is where does your wrestling passion come from? Where did it originate from? How long have you been a fan?
Well, it's weird. I just reconnected with a really old friend who I knew when I was about 5 or 6, and I remember he showed me sort of at the time WWF tapes and bits of WCW when it was on Channel 4, I think it was, sort of when we were getting to 8 or 9 and probably shouldn't have been watching all of it at that point. And he introduced me to sort of the video games, and that was sort of my introduction to it. We didn't sort of have Sky for a while, and eventually I was able to watch it, and it was this definitely can't be the first match I saw that got me into it, but the first one I properly remember seeing him really getting in was Eddie Guerrero, Billy Gunn in a tournament for the United States title when they brought that back. And I know I was watching it before then, but I just remember connecting with Eddie Guerrero and just loving everything he did. Amazing. And it sort of went from there. Sort of SmackDown was always kind of my show because of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie's incredible legacy as well. And it was funny because I actually watched, I was watching AEW, and Billy Gunn's still in the ring. He's still smashing it. He's still doing real well. You know, I think he's doing amazing. So yeah, it's awesome to see him do AEW stuff now. But yeah, you know, like I say, Eddie Guerrero, what a champion. And have you got a favorite wrestler in modern day wrestling?
Monday, like, first one that came to mind immediately then was Daniel Bryan, so I'll go with him. Similar mold to Eddie as well, and
of course,
particularly when he showed through when he did Team Hell No with Kane, seeing that he had the sort of the charisma side down as well. He wasn't just an incredible technical wrestler. It was nice seeing that he had every level and everything they've given him to do, particularly the last couple of years when he's gone from when he was sort of preaching and doing the whole environmentalist thing, and then was able to switch instantly, and just the way he's gone between, still a similar character, but made it switch and feel that natural. I think he's just smashing it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, he's doing real well. He's got such a longevity and a legacy there.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you as well. Obviously, you keep sort of coming up with questions because obviously you've had such an interesting sort of time from Female First to now Metro and other stuff. What have been the biggest challenges that you've learned since becoming a journalist, since qualifying and then going out into the world? Because obviously we work with a lot of young people, and we do a lot of on Soundsphere. We run a lot of work placements, so it's interesting to get your thoughts on, how you get your ideas at a place like Metro, which is such a vast, it's got such a vast network. What have been the biggest challenges on getting your ideas across, and I guess through your whole career so far?
Yeah, it's a balancing act doing it for someone like Metro, and it was a bit at the Mirror as well when I was sort of working at the Mirror for a few years, where when it's a publication like that, it's finding a bit of a balance where I'm getting to do sort of all the news I want to do, the interviews I want to do, but it's also bearing in mind some stories will just hit harder for that kind of audience because it's also for more casual fans or lapsed fans, or even people who don't really have a clue about wrestling at all. So it's just been finding balances with that, but there's been ones that have sort of bridged the gap a bit. I did one a few weeks back now for Captain Tom's birthday, when Drew McIntyre not presented, but revealed that he was getting his own championship belt, and just things like that is finding, for me with the Metro anyway, finding stories that cross over, but also trying to, like, I'd done interviews with Rhea Ripley last week that seemed to go really, really well. It was a really great chat, but it was a real wrestling angle for the story. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It's trying not to go sort of. I don't want to do stories that are just clickbait or trying to shoehorn really recognizable names into the headline of every interview just to get it. I'm glad that I'm being able to just do wrestling interviews and stories.
Yeah, man, I've read the stuff, and like I say, you've got a good flair for it, which is wicked, and you've obviously developed and stuff. But yeah, man, there's probably about 50 more questions I could ask you, and we will do this, off camera. But the great thing about having you on today, and thank you so much for making the time to come on and talk to us, is we're going to talk about some present day wrestling stuff, more specifically. What's going on with Drake Maverick and Rockstar Spud at the moment? Obviously, that's it's pretty. Is it a work? What do you think about this at the minute? Obviously, modern day wrestling, and you're a journalist, and there's not much hiding. You can't really hide much from you and stuff. And you can't, kayfabe is dead. So, is it a work? What's happening? What do you think? Where do you think we're at with Spud and with Drake Maverick?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you say, just the lines are totally blurred now anyway. 'Cause just on a slightly different point already, but just with wrestling in general, it seems to be the only thing that can blur the lines like that. Like you look at things like Roman Reigns with everything he went through,
Mm-hmm.
and then seeing the real emotion when he came back, which also weaves into the TV show. And like professional wrestling seems to be the only thing that can do that in that way, because we see them as the real person. If it's something like Roman, where there's not really necessarily a big bold character there, it's Roman Reigns,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So it's a weird one with Drake, where like first of all, I have no clue officially whether it's a work or not, or his contract or anything. It I'd be it's such a weird, I can't figure out whether they're just going to maybe re-sign him at the end of his 90 days, then he has been released, whether that was the plan all along.
Yeah,
Like, I'd assume, I don't know whether because they announced it officially on the website, that'd be something then they'd have to bear in mind with shareholders. I'm not sure how that'd work with it. It's such a strange one.
It's interesting because they've just re-signed Drew, haven't they? They re-signed Drew Gulak, and and Ric Flair as well has been re-signed. Yeah. There was a huge media frenzy when Ric Flair was supposed to have left after 30 years, and in fact it took them a few hours to re-sign him after those stories dropped. So everyone was freaking out. Was Ric Flair off to AEW or whatever? Yeah. And then he gets re-signed, and I think they did the same with Drew Gulak. Everyone was like, why is Drew leaving? He's in the middle of an angle on SmackDown. And
he was at the height that he's not been at before. It's like you say, it was so strange to see.
But he's re-signed, and that's what I mean. So I think what's fascinating, and the reason why I wanted to bring you on today was to talk about the psychology of that, because he's Spud's got his booking, he's got his booking email on his Twitter and stuff. Yeah. And he did that really emotional video, I was thinking the other day, was it Drew? Sorry, not Drew. Was it Drake working the system there? Understanding the value of social media, because that video got 2 million plus views in a short amount of time. Do you think WWE U-turned on their decision and then saw the success of that video and how it went viral from a business perspective, and then perhaps changed their mind?
Quite possibly, because you look like Drake as well. All the time he's been there, he's done so much for that company, like he did when he was in TNA. Like nothing's beneath him if it comes to his character. Like he knows that there's the character of Spud or Drake Maverick who might wet himself on TV, but that's not him wetting himself on TV. Like he gets the business more than anyone seems to. So it wouldn't surprise me if he'd had that idea and WWE have gone with it. I could definitely see, like, he's got the mind to, I think, try and make the best of a bad situation.
Absolutely. And what do you think is the future then? Because obviously we're seeing this stuff on NXT, where he's having a resurgence now, and he's got, Atlas is behind him, and he just had a cracking triple threat with Kushida in there as well. Do you think there's longevity to Drake Maverick in WWE if he gets re-signed based on this buzz? Because obviously it's all very well and good, as having buzz behind you for a period of time. A bit like when I think Goldust and Cody won the tag titles a few years ago. That was because there was a social media uproar because they were going to lose their jobs. I know that was a storyline and a work, but it's a similar vibe, isn't it? Where people are WWE are potentially bringing Spud back in. They bought Drew Gulak back in because it's a good business decision.
Yeah.
Right? But what's the longevity there? Do you see him? Does he get the cruiserweight title? A lot of people are saying he goes to the final and then gets re-signed. There's a lot of speculation there, but he doesn't actually win. So what's the longevity for Spud, in your opinion?
I don't see any way after this that he doesn't stay. Just as a personal opinion, I don't see WWE putting this much stock into building someone up like this, even though it's getting them, a lot of buzz, like you say.
Yeah.
If he was definitely leaving, they'd just be building him up for someone to swoop in and take him.
Yeah.
And I imagine, again, just speculation, but Impact, I'm sure would love to have someone like that back.
Yeah.
When you look at people that did get released as well, like Heath Slater, people who've been around for so long and given so much as well, I don't see necessarily why they'd put all this into Drake Maverick just to then either not re-sign him or re-sign him and not do something with him.
You're right.
So I could definitely see him getting a shot at the cruiserweight title and a run with it. I think he's earned that. I know he's not done a great deal of matches since he signed with WWE. He's not had to with being general manager, and with the 24/7 title, he's had other things, but he's showing exactly what he can do, and he's hanging in there with people like Kushida, who are at the absolute top of the game.
Of course.
I think he strikes me as someone that Vince McMahon would love, that is so dedicated, is a great worker, but isn't above sort of joking and laughing at himself. People like Kurt Angle who've done it, where Angle's never been sort of too shy or embarrassed to be the joke, while also still having this incredible talent.
Yeah.
But I do think if they keep him around, he'll be 40 in a few years. So I think this is a good time for him to get that run that he has earned and does deserve. Absolutely. And then potentially move back into a non-wrestling role in a couple of years, or
yeah. I think there was a lot of talk of him going back to Impact and doing, working with EC3. While I've got you, what do you think? Predict for me from your perspective where you see everybody going. Obviously, so Deonna Purrazzo's gone to Impact. She's working with Impact at the minute. EC3 is sort of running his own, developing his own brand. Obviously, we've just seen FTR in AEW this week, which is fantastic news for them. Where predict, some of your favourites. Obviously, you don't necessarily have to reel off the list of the entire. Some of your favourites. Where do you think they're going to go, and why do you think that they would be a suit for that chosen organisation?
I think it's a tough one because of the timing of it all as well. There's very few companies running shows, so it does kind of sort of limit it. But straight away, Rusev, I really hope he goes to AEW because he's good enough to be on such a big platform and to be a genuine star. Like, he's so charismatic, he's incredible in the ring. Whether that's face, heel, anything he's doing, he's proven how great he is. And I think he'd be a great fit there in terms of the work rate. I don't know if they'd maybe try and avoid him if they try and move away from signing too many from WWE, particularly with FTR going in. It's a delicate one, but I think he'd be a great fit there. I'd like to see someone like Heath Slater maybe do NWA.
You see, Heath Slater would be fantastic, a fantastic fit for NWA. That's great. It's actually NWA gets sort of passed over a lot. I spoke to Nick Aldis the other week, and he was dead enthusiastic about, he was a lovely lad and dead enthusiastic about the business, and guys like Heath Slater would be a great fit. Aaron Stevens and other people have gone from WWE. And done a good stint in NWA. How do you feel about sort of? I'm not going to get you. I don't know whether it's fair to get you to rank the sort of promotions at the minute, but where do you see NWA fitting? In terms of, obviously you've got Ring of Honor there as well as a valuable option now. Well, how would you rank the promotions at the minute? Tastefully, I guess. Yeah,
it's like, for me, NWA is right up there just because it's something different. It's quite an easy watch. Like, it doesn't feel like with Raw, it's sort of the 3-hour slog. Although it's been getting a lot better the last few months, it doesn't feel like quite as much of a chore. They've really stepped things up. But even then, setting aside 3 hours to just sit and watch that while also doing 2 hours of AEW, 2 hours of NXT, it all adds up. But NWA, just the way they do it, it kind of flies by. So for me, they've been fantastic. Impact are doing fantastic things, which they have been for a while now. It's a shame that they still have that stigma now and again hanging over from the TNA days and when people like Hogan and that were there, because they're just a completely different company. And when people are there saying they want the Attitude Era back or they miss that, Impact have kind of been doing that anyway with Sami Callihan, with Tessa.
The ECW guys as well. I'm a big fan of that. There was a question I asked, and I'm sorry because I'm sort of picking your brains now. There's a question I asked on a video a few weeks ago, saying, does ECW and that kind of those, RVD and those guys, does it work in 2020 having those guys in Impact? Do they still have the same value? And would you, for example, as a long-term wrestling fan, do you still engage with those talents being given that platform?
Yeah, I think it depends sort of how they use them, what they do with them. because even with the AEW, when they're bringing people in, sort of Jericho's been used. I know he's on the next level above everyone else in terms of he just doesn't seem to age and he's always evolving. But even with, when they brought in like Jake Roberts, he's not kind of overshadowed anything. He's been there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with Rob Van Dam. He's developed when he was doing the whole sleaze and just everything going on there. It's as long as it's kept fresh, there's it's just a quick pop and they're not taking too much time away. I think there's definitely a place for it.
Absolutely, man. I think that it's interesting because Impact gets. I'm a huge fan still of Impact's work.
Yeah.
Sami Callihan has come on leaps and bounds from his NXT tenure. Really got into NWA since speaking to Nick, and obviously not that this is anything to do with it, but I'm a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. So watching Billy Corgan, Billy Corgan have that success with something he's passionate about is fantastic. I remember when I was living in the US, like I would watch Ring of Honor because it would be on. You know what I mean? And I would, first discovering, guys like Damian Priest who are obviously NXT now.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot of great talent in Ring of Honor. Jay Lethal's there, and such amazing things. Do you have give me a couple of dream feuds, like cross promotion dream feuds? I've got this segment on the channel now where I fantasy book dream feuds between different eras. I think one was Mankind from Mick Foley from early 2000s, and Darby Allin in AEW. Give me a couple of cross-genre feuds that you would like to see in your brain. If you were going to book it, what would you book across?
With you saying Foley, then Cactus Jack and Jimmy Havoc in given 10-15 minutes, I think would be phenomenal. I rate Jimmy so highly. I remember seeing him. Slightly off topic, but with Jimmy Havoc, I remember when I went to WrestleMania a few years back in Orlando, and Progress were doing their first show. I think it was their first time out in the States, and they were doing it as part of WrestleMania week. And I'm pretty sure it was that show. It was Jimmy against Zack Sabre Jr. But no kind of gimmicks or death match or anything. They just wrestled, and Jimmy stood toe to toe with him. Yeah, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
he's showing they could do it.
He's such an entertaining guy. It was great. It's great to see him and Kip actually. Funnily enough, I was speaking. It's really interesting. I speak to wrestlers and names pop up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jimmy Havoc and Kip Sabian. I was speaking to Adam Maxted and Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc came up as real. How amazing is that for such great British talent? To have that platform now in AEW, which is awesome. So Mick Foley versus well, give me 2 or 3 more. So we got Mick Foley because I love this stuff.
Yeah,
versus Jimmy Havoc. Okay, so you've got one there. Okay, give me two more.
Keep it top. Cage and Walter.
Oh
battering each other.
Yes,
I think it'd be. Oh, to be fair, Cage and Apollo Crews.
Amazing.
Another one where similar build and everything, and big lads who are just ridiculous, like the things Crews can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. So I think seeing those two rock up would be
absolutely
fantastic.
That'd be really great to see Cage obviously debut this past week, which is awesome. And give me one more, just because I love this stuff. Give me your sort of top 3.
Top 3. To be fair, thinking any era, and if
any era,
we've mentioned it before, but Drew Gulak and Eddie Guerrero. Or Drew Gulak and Benoit, just anyone from that kind of that SmackDown 6 that they had when they had Los Guerreros, Edge, Mysterio, just destroying it every week. Putting in people like Drew Gulak, Nakamura, Cesaro in that era, just anyone from that would have been absolutely incredible.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Just before we finish, I'm going to round it back to you, a personal question to you, because I think I'm going to turn this into more of an advice for potential wrestling journalists. Because obviously you've done very well for yourself. Am I right in thinking you're in Manchester, right? Are you still up north?
Yeah.
See, that's really interesting. Very rarely do I get to speak to from an interview perspective. I do speak to journalists and ask them about you went to Preston, I went to Preston, you've stayed in Manchester. I've also, like you, I've moved around, but I've stayed relatively, I'm in Yorkshire now. And you can make it work. But if you were going to sort of give any tips to anybody who's, takes inspiration from the work you do for metro.co.uk as a contributor, or any of the work you've done previously, what tips and advice would you give to anybody who wants to get into wrestling journalism or journalism in general? Does location matter? What are your thoughts on that?
See, I've always been like, in terms of location, I won't try and defend it, but I've never wanted to live in London, partly for just being away from family and things like that. But
yeah,
just as a city, it's been too busy for me. I've just never really clicked with it. So I've always been quite sure that I wanted to stay up north, which is actually in the end what led to me wanting to move on from the Mirror and go freelance, which has ended up working out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than I expected. So I don't think location. Like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, just in case. It depends on what you're doing as well, how you want to be doing it. Like if I'd wanted to stay in terms of staff jobs at a national publication, then London would seem to be the way to go with it. But I don't think it's really, like, it shouldn't be necessary, partly because there are things like this, and the internet is a thing, so there's no need for everyone, I don't think, to all be crowded round one news desk every day. But in terms of advice, I'd say just taking any opportunity you can, building up contacts, because pretty much all the jobs I've had, including female first, have come from people I'd met through either work experience or from other jobs. And it's just sort of led through names being passed on, or just getting sort of heads up about jobs that were going and things like that. So it's all paid off. Like the things I did at Female First with Sai for Impact led to me doing a lot more wrestling stuff, which has then led to all the other interviews and stuff I've done. So it's just, taking advantage of every opportunity and contact, really.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And that's fantastic. Well, I'm hoping this can be the first of many times that we have you on the channel to talk wrestling. It's great to catch up with you. Obviously, I've got a lot of respect for you as a musician as well as a journalist. And congratulations on all your success. I know you've got some WWE interviews to do this afternoon, so I hope you enjoy them. And I look forward to catching up with you in a bit, mate. Thanks so much for your time.
Too. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no worries, man. Take it easy.
You too.